Hey everybody, Dave Clark, aka the Pattern Guy, in the pattern shop today. Well, it's been a little bit, stuff happens at the Clark household, so back at work again. So trying to get used to the schedule working. I was doing 412s before, on 4 off 4. They got me doing 56 hours a week here now, so it's been a little rough trying to get used to the schedule and that. So finally get a day off and come out in the shop and work, and I'll show you a little bit more on the tally ho project we're working on, okay? Like I said, sorry this is dragging out here, but guys gotta understand, I got a full-time job working over 40 hours. I depend on Joe to do stuff for me too, and Joe works full-time. So in between getting, you know, him and I together, getting time to do things, and Mama's got a list of honey-do list, you know, that long, so you got to start getting stuff done for her too. So we get back at the tally ho again. I'll show you some more stuff today. What we got going is last we let off, we got this turned up. I had a little bit of a mishap with this too. I was doing some other measuring and things just weren't working out, so I found out that I wasn't high enough. I had taken some off my face plate and that dropped me down a little bit. So what I ended up doing was, I didn't have the cameras to show you guys how to do things again, but what I ended up doing, I just cut the top off on the lathe so it's nice and perfect, all right? And then if you can remember, we notched out the plate, the face plate, so that this would be perfectly on center, right? All right, so we had that perfectly on center. Get the one screw hole, circle it on the safe face plate. That way it's gonna go on the same way. Then what I did, I took and I turned up another lid, you know, with the correct dimensions on it. And then I had to glue that lid back on. That's why we got this little bit of a rim around here too. We had to put some Bondo on there too. So that's a good thing about pattern making. You know, we can fill our holes in with the Bondo. And I really wish I could have showed you my mistake that I did and how I how I fixed it, okay? Like I said, Joe had the camera, so wasn't able to do it. So that's basically how I did. So today what we gotta do, we gotta start doing the inside, all right? And the inside, what we gotta do is, I gotta get some center lines, all right? Now this is a way, there's several ways we could do this. We could put it on a rotary table. Eventually this does have to go on a rotary table because we gotta cut some of this out inside, but I got to get that inside hub done first in here, okay? That hub's got to be perfectly on center, plus we got a couple ribs and a couple other features inside here. All right, so what we got to do is we got to start out, we got to get a center line. All right, so the easiest way for me to do this in this shop, and it's going to be for you to do it because you're not going to have the equipment, we could set an angle plate up, measure with a height gauge, and get your center. We could do that way. All right, a lot of guys don't have the angle blocks for one thing, and you're not gonna have the height gauge. All right, so a simple remedy for that is what we're gonna do is I made this angle block. This is a bit big for what we're doing here, but I used to do a lot of big work in here for a company. And this was an invaluable piece of equipment, and it's something I just made myself. It's perfectly square, it's parallel from here. That way you can get a lot of measurements off of this, get things square, get your center lines, and you know, I didn't have to buy an expensive piece of equipment. So with these things, if you make them, I'd make them out of a piece of hardwood. I used a poplar. I used to get a lot of poplar, so made mine out of poplar. The other item we're going to be using that you can make yourself too is what's called a mouse. Kind of looks like a mouse nose. Basically, it's just a block of wood. I nailed a nail in there, and then I took it, I sanded it off here, so that way that nail's even with this surface here, and then we just made a point so that we can use it as a scribe, okay? So basically what we're gonna do is this, we're gonna measure this inside. Touch back real quick too. This is cast iron 1/8" shrink, okay? Shrink rules, one of the guys asked in the comments, how do you use a shrink rule? You use a shrink rule just like you use any other rule. If you can remember, I think his last video, the video before, I showed you the 2 shrink rules. All it is this shrink rule is just a regular ruler stretched out, okay? Just use it like a regular rule. All right, so this one, it's actually 13 3/8, so half of 13 3/8 is 6 11/16. Okay, so what we can do, one of the things here, let me show you this real up close if you can see it. Okay, so I got my segment, you got the segment lines in here. Try to get your centers not on those, right? Because as you're scribing, it might pull your scribe over a little bit, or you know, you just might get them mixed up or whatever. All right, so I'm gonna try to get this where it's not on that line. All right, so what I said, we gotta get 6 11/16. All right, is half. So this doesn't matter where on here this is, okay? Like I said, I'm gonna try to line it up not on a segment line, okay? And they just measure 6 11/16 over, okay? And then what I like to do, I like to run this back and forth, make sure my greatest dimension is 6 11/16, and I'm right there. Okay, so here is my center, all right? And then I know that when I scribe this line down in this hole, this is perfectly square, so that line is gonna be where it's gotta be down in that hole, okay? So all you gotta do is just scribe your line. I'm gonna put it on the outside a little bit too. And like I said, this is the easiest way for like guys that are just starting out, don't have the equipment. You know, for me to make this angle block, like I said, you gotta have a good sander. Yeah, that's number one thing you want to get. If you don't have one, you know, there's other ways you can do things. All right. Okay, now important thing is don't move this, okay? Because what we got to do now is I got to get a center down on that line. I could have done it another way, although I kind of messed myself up. As I said, we cut that cap off. So what I did was when I put it back in, when I glued the cap back on, I went ahead for strength and everything. I knew I wasn't going to get to this for a little bit. I went ahead and rubbed a fillet in there, okay? And what I'll do is I'll show you where I made a mistake in doing that in a minute. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to get my center this way, okay? So it's going to be the same thing, 6 11/16. All right, so we'll go from the edge out. 6 11/16. Okay, and then I'm gonna make my line on my thing. I gotta get a, there's my pencil. Thought I had one out here. All right, and I'm just gonna put a little mark there. Hang on a sec, I gotta get another lid. Okay, sorry about that, guys. All right, get a new pencil lead in there. All right, make sure that that's the right one again. Always double check here. 6 11/16. Okay, I don't think this one's gonna make it down here. I might have to get my bigger one. Yeah, definitely. Hang on a sec. All right, here I got my bigger one here. All right, like I said, I know this is perfectly square. The bottom and the top are perfectly parallel, okay? And perfect, it's not a iron block like a machinist would use, but for doing this stuff, it's where it's good enough where you need it. Okay, so I'm just gonna put one little mark down on the bottom. That's my center. you can do a lot of things with these dividers. I don't even know half the stuff you can do. I thought I knew a lot on the dividers, but you know, as YouTube came out, you see a lot of guys do some real neat tricks. So I'll show you as much as I can, but seriously, look up on YouTube, some guys doing stuff with dividers. There's so many different measurements you could take. You know, you can lay out a whole star with just the dividers. It's gonna be perfect, things like that, you know. So let me show you how to get your center. Okay, I'll see if I can get the other camera down here. All right, let's see if we can do this here. All right, so I got my center line here, okay, and I got my center point right there. So next what we got to do, what we're trying to establish right now is I got to get a right angle from where we were at. Okay, so what I could have done too, I could have left my angle block on there and then got 45 degree, or not a 45, it'd be a 90. Most of I can't think of them. The triangles I got are 45. Okay, it's 90 and 45. All right. So what we could have done is I could have, you know, gone out. I had that mark, the halfway mark on my angle block. All right. But the only problem is with the triangles that I have, I could have got a perfect 90 off of that center. But the problem is, I didn't have a way to scribe it perfectly straight, okay? Because, you know, I put the mouse up against the block that made that perfectly straight down, okay? So I didn't have that. Okay, so when you don't have things like that, get these out, okay? So let's go down in the job here. So how you do that, what I want to do is I want to get my centers perpendicular. All right, so I got my mark, and you set these at any dimension, okay? The trick is you can't move them, okay? And the best thing is the farther out you go, the better, okay? So that's what you want to do. All right, so I'm going to make a mark out here. And not changing these dividers. I'm going to come to the other side of my line, and I'm going to make a mark there, okay? So there's my mark here. All right. Now, from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to spread these dividers out a little bit farther, okay? And it doesn't matter how much you go, okay? I mean, it does, but you'll figure it out, okay? And then what you do, I said I want to try to take these as far out as I can. All right, so we're going to spread these out. Strike an arc here. I'm going to strike an arc there. Then I'm going to go over to this other mark I made here on that radius. And on my center, make a mark. And make a mark. Okay, so you got a cross there. Yeah. Okay guys, I'm going to take some measurements. We'll get some little pieces of wood out and start getting on this. Hang tight. Okay guys, for now all we need is like 2 pieces of wood. I found some pieces that we can use. I'm just going to start rough cutting them out. Then we'll start fine tuning how to lay these out and go from there. Okay, so this block we're actually going to use for the bigger top part. And then this one is pretty close to the round part down on the bottom. Look at it this morning. This is one thing you gotta always do. Always work off your layout, but refer back to your drawing. Or in my case, I'm working off the casting. So I was looking at the casting a little bit when I just flipped it over. And I see that the boss is on the opposite side. Looks like they protrude past a little bit. So, you know, I caught it, you know, good thing. I probably wouldn't have made a big difference if I would have just, you know, made that round, put the bosses on there, but they do go out a little bit. So we'll make sure we incorporate that into the pattern there. So that's the thing, working by yourself, you guys got to double, triple check yourself. Okay. So what we're going to do is start getting these things ready to go here. You know, that bottom piece is, you know, roughly 5 inches in diameter. Like I said, I want to make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so this piece here, it's close to its inch and 3/8 thick is what I need it. This one's pretty close, so we'll be able to go ahead and use this one. I'm going to use down here a little bit more because this actually, it's got some snipe in it from the planer, so I want to make sure that, you know, I don't run into that there. So 5.5, so I'll make sure this is like 5.5, 5 3/4 maybe. That way I got a little bit of room to play with here. Got this little, like I said, you always want to maximize, so we're gonna rough cut this out diameter wise. Okay. Wow, that was way off there. Let's make sure I'm way past again. All right, like I said, I'm doing this so I can maximize my material. And, you know, I have a little bit of mahogany left over for something down the road there, okay? I do a lot of small jobs, so, you know, a lot of these small pieces help me out quite a bit here. All right, so you gotta make sure I'm past it. All right, we're just gonna cut this off. I got like a crack in this, so. All right, I'm gonna go bandsaw these things. I'm gonna put a straight edge in on the sander, and we're gonna start getting a little bit more fine-tuned here. Hang tight. Okay guys, I got these to rough size. What I just did, I put a straight edge on here. All right, so I'm gonna start laying this thing out and you know, fine tune it. Just get finer and finer and finer. Okay, got my marking gauge. So what I'm gonna do, I'll start out with this top piece, okay? So what we'll do is we'll get the height on here, and that's looking like 2 9/16 we need. So you got that nice flat bottom. So we'll come up 2 9/16. Make our mark. Marking gauge. Okay. All right, we're the thickness there. Okay, so all I'm doing is thickness, so I don't have to do it all the way around. You could. Let's do this 1 3/8. Hang tight. Do this. Okay guys, I got these roughed out, so now we're going to start fine-tuning everything. I'm going to take my top piece here and start laying that out. So basically I want to get my center lines on here, and this one I do want to put all the way around. All right, so 3 inches, this blocks, we'll make this, like I said, we got to add some draft on there. So always, you know, the dimension's 3 inches, so 1.5 inches is half, right? So you want to do a little bit for draft. We're not going to put 1/8 of an inch on here, but probably what I'm going to end up doing with this thing is we'll go like, I don't know, 1 3/4 inch, 1 5/8 probably good. Do a little bit more than that. Oops, a 2 inch would help, right? There we go. All right. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this on the 2 sides. I don't have the ends done yet, so I can't put them on the sides, but I got it on the top and bottom. All right. And then, or I shouldn't say the sides, the ends. Okay, it's one of the things you gotta really get into. Like I said, terminology. Terminology is very important with a lot of this stuff. I try my best. You guys catch me on some things, but you know, here and there you got to remember terminology, because you know, say, hey, I got to take you know, 1/4 of an inch off the end when you mean the side, and it can mess you up, you know. So you gotta watch. You gotta try your best with the terminology. Okay. All right. So then we're gonna do. I'm gonna put this top and bottom again, but I'm gonna have to put it down the side too, because I gotta get it for the bottom here. Okay, so this is gonna go down the sides. Okay. All right. Alrighty. Okay, so I got my center lines, top and bottom. Okay, and then we're gonna start laying out the figure of it. All right, and this is where you go back to your dividers. You can go right off of the layout. Okay, that's why you make your layout. I'm double checking. That looks good to me. All right, I'm gonna strike my arc on here. And like I say, when you're doing your arcs, don't just do it all in one motion, because the point of these will start following that green and it'll pull the legs out or push them in, and you're not going to get an accurate arc. So you got to kind of like make the little chopping motions. Okay. All right. The next, I'm going to double check on this. See, I started doing what I just said. I'm going to double check on here. Looks like the ends of these things are radius too. It's not just flat. Okay. So, and I do have that, but I'm going to double check this here. Like I said, casting, you always standard, and then we put it on the shrink roll, right? So it looks like 5 inches. We're double checking. 5 inches, baby. That's what we got. All right. Okay, got my 5 inches. So make my 5/8 radius. Or not 5/8, make my 5 inch. Sorry. That's 5 inch diameter. Terminology. All right, so then what we got to do is that comes to a point, so I got to go from my center line out and get the right thing here. Let's see if I got to do this here. Okay, so what we're going to do here, I got this diameter laid out here. Okay, see, that's that mark there. Okay, I got this, the two ends. That's my 5 inch. Here's my 5 inch there. Okay. Now what we got to do is we got to go from the center line over to here, and it's all the same here. Okay, so I'm going to get my smaller pair of dividers, and we're going to do that. Take the dimension right off of the layout there. I'm going to double check it again, like I said. Okay. 5/8 times 2 is 1 1/4 inches. You got to flip it around there. Make sure. Go over here with my standard scale. And that's it. Okay. So double check that again. Yep. All right. So okay. And then we're going to match up the holes. So that's how you get your 3D, okay? All right, so we just get your width, height, and your length dimensions, okay? And that's how we basically go for 2D, 3D, like I was explaining the other day. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna cut this piece out. We're gonna put draft on this, okay? And then this 5 degree radius, or 5 degree 5-inch diameter is going to be bigger down on the bottom because we're going to add draft, and then we'll put that onto this piece here. Okay, so let me go cut this out a little bit, sand it, and we'll get right back with you guys. Hang tight. Okay guys, I got that top piece. Now we're going to get that other bottom piece that's 1 3/8. Okay, as you remember, I got this down to the width I need. It's 1 3/8. All right, so like I said, usually when we do these things, I worked in half a dozen pattern shops, worked at a couple foundries. Okay, every pattern shop I've worked in except for one, we always took the dimension, had it on the top, added draft. Okay, think of the third little job shop I worked in, we did a lot of work for a company. They made stainless steel heat treat trays. That's all we did in there. It was just like it was just not good. So anyhow, that company, they wanted you to keep the dimension in the middle, which was a real bear. So you had to be real careful on your layouts. You kind of had to, you know, if it was 3 inches deep, you had to cut it in half, and you had to hold your dimensions like in the middle. It sucked. You know, like I said, 9 times out of 10, it's you know, your dimension plus your draft. Okay, so with this piece being, what was that, 2.5, a little bit over 2.5. You know, obviously it's going to be. We struck the 5-inch diameter around this side, so the 5 inches is going to be bigger down here. All right, which, let's see what we ended up with here. So yeah, it actually grew a little bit over 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to, I actually got, you know, this is where you do your centers. I got the centers on the bottom of this. So what we'll be able to do is just set our dividers to this, onto this piece here, and it'll match up. Okay, first thing I got to do though is we're going to put centers all the way around on this. This is going to be a round piece, but I need the centers all the way around because it's going to go into what we just laid out before, and we got to match up all 4 lines with it. Okay, now the other thing is, you can say, well, this is round in there, you know, we could just strike the radius, whatever the bottom of this is, we could strike the radius in there and put it in there. Well, you can't, because we got bosses, and I don't know if you remember, we'll show you, one side actually lines up with some holes that are on the outside of the casting. And that's why we have to have the center lines in there to make sure that this is where it's got to be in there. Okay, there are things where if you are doing something round, everything's concentric in that, you know, instead of your center lines, I don't recommend it. You know, you could just put a radius and drop it on there. If I'm doing bosses on a job, you know, if I have a whole bunch of bosses I got to put on, I'll do that. I'll just strike the radius on there, or my diameter on there, and just put your bosses on, you know, things that aren't that, you know, important. But this has got to be where it's got to be for other things. Okay, so I'm going to lay out, I'm going to put my centers on this. Okay, and I think we did, let's do this here real quick. It's like I said, I wanted to cut around that one part, so I'm just going to make sure I get a center where I'm going to be. Okay, so got my center there, and we're going to put this all the way around. Okay, or we don't have to put it all the way. Actually, it's top and bottom, but I got to put it on one side so I can transfer it from the bottom to the top. Okay, and always make sure you do the side that you got sanded too. Okay, that's the thing that a lot of guys will do, is they'll get that non-sanded side and then they go and their center line's off a little bit, you know. Okay, so we got top and bottom, our vertical center line. Okay, now what we're gonna do is, I did put a little bit of a mark here. Like I said, I want to make sure I'm gonna get fully on this piece. So Just did a little mark on here. That'll work there. Okay, now I get my horizontal center line. Okay, now it's, you know, horizontal center line, vertical center lines. Basically, I call the horizontal one horizontal to the straight edge I got, okay, and then the vertical is, you know, perpendicular to that, right? So if you hear me saying that, that's basically what that is. Okay, so I got my center lines on here again. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is, like I said, I can pick this radius up right off of here because I got my center lines, right? Got that done. Okay, and wow. Boy, they say flies get you when it's going to rain. I guess it's going to rain. Man, that thing hurt. That one got me good. All right. All right, now, like I said, too, looking at this, I actually have to change this up a little bit from what I have laid out here. All right, so let me double check this thing here. Actually, you know what we're going to do too? I think what we're going to do is we got some bosses that come out here. We're going to put those on here first to double check this thing because where I'm measuring is a little bit lower. I can't get a good measurement on there, so we're going to do that first. So let me get these bosses going, and we'll go from there, all right? 1 3/4 inches. All right, so 1 3/4 inches there. So we need some 1 3/4 high stock, and then what we got to do is we got to radius that. We'll put it in there. We got our center lines on here. Get our width out here, and boom. And we'll be good here. So they're roughly 1 inch. That's on the outside of the radius, so we got to go in. So probably a good 1 1/4 inch. So 2.5 inch stock. We'll get 1 3/4 by 2.5. Let me go get some stock, guys. Hang tight. Okay, guys, I'm gonna make that piece that comes out here right now. I got a block squared up. My center line all the way around it. Okay, here's my center line. I got my radius, okay? And then this is this piece right here, okay? So I gotta actually have some draft on here. I don't have it on here on the layout, which sometimes I put it on, sometimes I don't, all right? So here's a couple ways we can do this, okay? So since, like I said, a lot of guys don't have a lot of things, I could take my protractor and go from the tangents, you set it at like 2 degrees and go down. I'm gonna show you guys a little trick, okay? So here's your diameter here, or your radius, all right, to get your diameter. All right, so I'm gonna go all the way down to the bottom. I'm gonna make a mark there, make a mark there. Okay, so basically this point here is the same as this point here. So if I connect these two, that'll be square. There's no draft on here. Okay, so for something like this distance, we don't really need that much draft. Okay, so probably 1/16. Like I said, we're gonna do a little bit better with Clark. So what I'm gonna do is take my dividers, and I'm going to add a 1/16 to it, a little bit more, okay? And I'm going to come out here, and I'm going to make a mark out here, make a mark out there, make my mark here to the tangency, okay? And I'll show you what I just did here. All right, see? I got my draft on there. A little bit much, but it's gonna be easier for Clark that way to mold, okay? So basically, like I said, this is this configuration here, right? It goes on the side of this piece. That's that piece right here, and then what we're making is right here, okay? All right, we need 2 of them. So I'm gonna split this in half. I'm gonna take over on the oscillating spindle sander, get my radius on there. Actually, it'll be like this. Okay, get my radius on there. And then that way that piece will just fit right on there, and then I'll get my length, okay? Okay guys, I got the piece made for, this is going to be for the 2 bosses. There's the end configuration. Okay, I sanded off, and sanding this shape, I sanded off my center line. I got to get that back on here. Okay, so I'm going to transfer that up there. I can't use the panel gauge or the thumb gauge here, so I'm just going to have to do it with the ruler. All right. And because that's why I say you do it all the way around. I got them on both ends. Okay, so I got those on the top again. All right, and I need those centers. Okay, because they're going to go in the center of that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I've got to make this piece here so it fits into here nice. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to flip. Let's see how we did this on camera here. Okay, we can just flip this. And like I said, we got the center on here. We got your center here. So we'll get that lined up on center, and then we'll get the tangency on both sides of this radius. Strike an arc, and then we'll take it over to the oscillating spindle sander, get both ends. Then we'll cut it in half, glue those on, and then we'll just get the outside what we need, okay? That's how we'll tackle that one. All right, so what I'm gonna do is, and then this one, like I said, we're gonna get the center tangency to both outside parts of the radius, but what we gotta do is we gotta go in a little bit because we got draft. All right, and we're gonna be taken away. So what I'll do is I'll make like an 1/8 of an inch mark on each side there. That way, that'll be where the tangency is, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put like about 1/8 of an inch mark on here. Boy, I tell you what, I don't know if it's gonna be raining later or what. These flies, this is like the first time these flies are really killing me today here. All right, here. So we'll do that. Okay. All right. Okay, so what we got our center line, we're the same from here to here, okay? So basically we want that to fit in there, and then transfer my center lines down. Okay, so what we got to do here now, this has got to go into here. All right, so we need this radius on there. So what we'll do is we'll match center to center, and then we'll hit tangency to tangency, okay?
Looks like my good side there.
Okay, there you got that, okay? Got one on each side. And then we'll just cut this in half, and hopefully we'll have enough. It's looking like I might have cut this one a little closer. Let's hope not here. All right, take these over to the oscillating spindle sander. sand that curve in there, make sure that that fits really good. And then we'll glue these on, let them sit for a little bit, and then we'll get the outside edge, okay? Hang tight, guys. Okay guys, went over to the oscillating spindle sander, sanded these things out, got my center lines on there. Okay, so one way that we're gonna check, make sure that these are gonna be still on center, and that center lines are just a touch off on my block that I made, not a big deal. That's why we got the layout too, so I got it set on the layout, all right? And then what I ended up doing is I put these two draft lines on there, and then we're just gonna make sure they line up on the draft lines also. Okay, so like I said, the center lines is just a hair. Oh, just a hair, just a hair. All right, so what I'm gonna do is spot glue these on. And what I'm probably gonna do is I'm gonna spot glue them on, let them sit for a little bit. And then probably in order to keep going, like I say, you always want to keep things in clamps for a few hours. I'm not going to clamp these. It's unnecessary to. What I'll probably do is I'll let them sit for 15-20 minutes, and we're going to wipe a fillet around there. That'll hold it on. That way we can keep on going, okay? And try to get this thing going, because I think Leo's pretty much waiting for this, and it's got to go down to Clark's and get cast yet, and I got a little bit of work to do on this here, so unfortunately I got to go back to my real job tomorrow too. So I'm gonna be working for 4 days, and while I'm working there's just no way I can do stuff I got 2 hours free time in the evening. That's it. By the time I come home, wash and get supper, we're done. So yeah, I'm gonna let those things sit for about 15 minutes. We'll wipe a fillet around them, then we'll cut them to width, or where we got to be width wise. Then we'll cut that bottom piece out. We'll know where we're at. I think, like I said, it just comes out just a little bit. I don't think it's much, but we'll know where we're at on that bottom piece. Then we'll go ahead, cut that bottom piece out. We'll glue these together. More than likely, I will clamp this one. Probably just for a couple hours. Then we'll set it in the bottom of this thing. And then we'll get on to what I'll start doing. While that's clamped up, we'll start working on the ribs, getting the rib stock cut out. And then once we get this piece put in there, then we'll get the length. There's also a couple bosses on the outside that we got to come up with too. So I'll get some stock ready for that too. Okay, so hang tight, guys. Okay guys, I got this 1 3/8 piece done. Good thing, like I said, there were a little bit of ears on there, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna spot glue this on here. I'm gonna glue this, or I'm gonna clamp this one. Yeah, and then clamp these ears on. The reason I didn't clamp those ears on is we're gonna, glue these to the bottom piece too, so they're going to be glued to this piece plus this bottom piece. All right, so it was kind of unnecessary, but we will clamp this one. I'm going to keep it in the clamps for a few hours. That's going to be it for me for the night too. Before I go any further with this, like tomorrow, what I'll do, actually I got to go to work tomorrow, so next time we'll pick up, I'll put the fillets in here. I want to try to finish this as much before we put it into the main part of the pattern, okay? And then this will be done. Then what we got to do is we got to do the ribs, cut the ribs in there. I'll show you how to do that. Then what we're going to do too is there's a couple other little bosses in there. We'll show you how to do that one. This is just getting kind of on the lengthy side. I don't want to overwhelm Joe with too much editing and that, because he's the guy that's got to edit all the stuff. So next time what we'll hit on is we'll get this in there, we'll get the ribs in, we'll get those other bosses, start finishing it, and then we got to flip it over. One of the things I keep on forgetting, there's a hole in the top. So what we'll do is we'll set up the rotary table up over on the mill, and we'll just go ahead and mill that out. Okay, you could probably do it with a router in it, or if guys at home or that don't have big shops and that, what you could do is oversized router it. You got your center lines on it, and then you could make a male plug. All right, squish some Bondo in there, squish it down, make sure you're on your center lines. You could do it that way, or if you want to, get some repro from Freeman, you could hang, just say this was a configuration of that thing. You could hang it in there on the centers and pour your plastic in there and do that. But we got the milling machine here. I got a rotary table. We'll just set it up on the rotary table and cut it in, okay? But this has to go in first, because it's going to actually cut into this too here. All right, so there's that. And then we'll probably do that as a video. I only wanted to do 4, but we'll probably end up doing 5. We'll do that video, and then we'll go ahead and get on the core sticks for the outside, get on the core boxes, and then we'll get this out to Clark so he can cast it for Leo. All right, so anyhow, what we're going to start doing too is we've been getting a lot of comments lately, so we're going to do answer some comments just on the on video, because it would be easier for me. Plus, a lot of them are the same, so we'll hit a few of them at the same time. All right. So anyhow, that's it for today. We're going to wrap it up. Everybody out there that has subscribed, I really appreciate it. We need some more subscribers. Keep them coming. I appreciate that. Hit the like button for me. That helps me out. And with that, we'll wrap it up. Have a good one out there, and everybody stay safe.